Every great life has a story, a unique narrative of purpose and perseverance that resonates through time. A story of struggle, a story of faith, a story of transformation, and sometimes a story that reminds us that where you begin does not have to determine where you end. Welcome to Testimony Portal. I'm Zai, and I am honored to be your host as we explore these powerful stories. Here, we go beyond the headlines and the history books to discover the real stories behind remarkable lives, from Nigeria to the world. The challenges they faced, the choices they made, the faith that carried them, and the legacy they left behind. These are stories of people who dared to believe, dared to persevere, and dared to make a difference. So sit back, open your heart, and come with me as we uncover another great life of faith.
Imagine a woman who lived more than 5 centuries ago. A woman whose name survived generations. A woman remembered not simply as the mother of a king, but as a powerful figure in the history of the ancient kingdom of Benin. Her name was Queen Idia. She was a mother, a queen, a woman associated with wisdom, courage, and spiritual power. And according to Benin traditions, she played an important role in helping her son, Oba Esigi, secure his throne and defend his kingdom. But who was Queen Idia? What do we actually know about her? And why does her image remain one of the most recognizable symbols of Nigerian heritage? Today, we travel back more than 500 years, to the ancient kingdom of Benin. This is the story of Queen Idia. To understand Queen Idia, we first have to understand the world in which she lived. The kingdom of Benin was one of the great states of pre-colonial West Africa. Its capital was Benin City, in what is now Edo State, Nigeria. It was a kingdom with a sophisticated political structure, a powerful royal court, and an artistic tradition that would eventually become famous around the world. Benin became renowned for its extraordinary cast brass and ivory works that continue to testify to the skill and creativity of its artists. At the center of this world stood the Oba, the king. But the power of the kingdom did not rest on the king alone. Around the royal court were individuals whose influence could reach far beyond what we might imagine today. And one of those people was Queen Idia. Queen Idia's son, Esigi, eventually became Oba of Benin, but his path to the throne was not simple. According to Benin traditions, Esigi's claim to power was challenged by his brother, Ahuaran. What began as a struggle within a royal family became something much larger, a struggle over the future of the kingdom itself. And tradition remembers Idia as a woman who supported her son during this dangerous period. Her influence became part of the story of Esigi's rise to the throne. And through that story, the role of a mother became intertwined with the fate of a kingdom. Historical sources and Benin traditions associate Esigi's reign with military conflict, including a major conflict involving the Ida region. This is where Queen Idia's story takes another dramatic turn. Benin tradition credits her with helping her son through the conflict. Some accounts describe her as possessing spiritual powers and playing a role in protecting Esigi and the kingdom. These elements are important to the traditional story of Queen Idia, but we should make an important distinction. The historical record can establish that Esigi's reign involved warfare, and that Idia became an important figure in Benin tradition. Claims about supernatural powers belong to the realm of traditional belief and oral history. And that distinction matters, because respecting history also means respecting the difference between what we know and what generations have believed. Whether we interpret the spiritual traditions literally, symbolically, or as part of Benin cultural memory, one message is clear. Idia became remembered as a protector. A woman who stood beside her son during a period of uncertainty. A mother whose influence became part of the story of a king. And perhaps that is one of the most powerful parts of her legacy. Sometimes leadership does not always happen from the throne. Sometimes, leadership happens beside the throne. Perhaps the most famous reason Queen Idia is recognized around the world is not a written biography. It is art. The famous ivory pendant mask associated with Queen Idia has become one of the defining images of Benin royal art. The mask is believed to represent Queen Idia and is associated with the reign of her son, Oba Esigi. Its intricate craftsmanship has made it an enduring symbol of Benin's artistic heritage. And through this remarkable work of art, the face of a woman from a kingdom more than 5 centuries old continues to speak to the modern world. Centuries after Queen Idia's lifetime, her image would become part of a much larger Nigerian cultural story. In 1977, Nigeria hosted Festac 77, the second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture. The festival brought together artists and cultural representatives from Africa and the African diaspora. And at the center of its visual identity was a stylized image based on the famous Queen Idia ivory mask. Suddenly, a woman from the ancient kingdom of Benin became a symbol recognized across the modern world. Her image crossed centuries, it crossed borders, and it became connected to a celebration of African creativity, identity, and cultural heritage. So why should Nigerians today still remember Queen Idia? Because her story challenges the idea that women were merely spectators in African history. She is remembered as a woman connected to political power, a mother connected to kingship, a figure connected to warfare, and an enduring symbol of Benin culture. Her story reminds us that African history contains powerful women whose influence deserves to be studied in its own right. Women whose contributions were sometimes preserved through oral tradition, through art, through cultural memory, and through the stories passed from one generation to another. But there is another reason stories like this matter to Testimony Portal. Our channel Telegong is about faith and transformation, yet faith has always existed within people's cultures and histories. Queen Idia lived centuries before Christianity became established in Benin, so we should not rewrite her story as though she were a Christian figure. Instead, we can learn from her story while respecting the spiritual worldview of the society in which she lived. That is important, because telling African stories honestly means allowing them to remain African. It means understanding people within the world they actually lived in, rather than forcing their stories into a modern framework. And perhaps that is one of the greatest responsibilities of storytelling, to remember the past with both honesty and respect. Queen Idia's story leaves us with a powerful question. What does it mean to stand behind someone who is carrying a great responsibility? She was remembered as a mother who supported her son, as a royal woman associated with courage and wisdom, and as a symbol of a civilization whose art still captures the world's imagination. Her story reminds us that influence does not always look like a crown. Sometimes influence looks like guidance. Sometimes it looks like courage. Sometimes it looks like wisdom. And sometimes it looks like standing beside someone when the future is uncertain. Queen Idia lived more than 500 years ago, but her image is still with us. In museums, in history books, in Nigerian cultural memory, and in the famous art of Benin. Her story reminds us that history is not only about kings, it is also about the people behind them. The mothers, the advisors, the protectors, the women whose influence may not always be written in every history book, but whose footprints remain. Queen Idia's story is more than the story of a queen. It is the story of courage, of influence, of motherhood, of heritage, and of a woman whose name endured long after her own time had passed. More than 5 centuries later, we are still telling her story. And perhaps that is the greatest testament of all. Queen Idia, the woman behind the king.
What a story. But perhaps the greatest question is not simply what this person accomplished. It is what their story asks of us. Because every generation inherits stories. Some inspired us, some challenge us, and some remind us that faith and perseverance can change the course of a life. So, as you leave this story behind, I want you to ask yourself, what will your story be? What will you do with the gifts you've been given? What will you build? And when your journey is over, what will you leave behind? This has been Testimony Portal, bringing you real stories of transformation and faith. I'm Zai. Until our next story, keep the faith, keep moving forward, and keep walking in purpose. Remember, your story matters.
Every breath you take, every step forward, every moment you didn't give up is a testimony. Still standing, still breathing, still believing. That's proof that God is working. This is your moment to share, to encourage, to give God the glory. Your story might be the light someone else needs. Come, share, be inspired.